We had taken a bit of a break between our Ballpark Digest Broadcaster Chats. We have to get back at it. We just had an enormous day. I'm Jesse Goldberg-Strassler. I work with the Lansing Lugnuts. I'm joined by Kevin Reichard, who operates, produces, publishes Ballpark Digest, the newsletter, the website, everything. Kevin, we've been talking about leading up to this day for a while. First, how are you?
I am good, a little tired. We posted 30-some stories yesterday on the shuffling of minor league baseball, the 120 teams making it in the rapture and the remainders who were left behind.
So this is a step, and there was so much leading up to just Major League Baseball releasing its list of invites. It's not like everything is final. In fact, things stay very complicated from here. Where are we right now?
Yeah, things are a lot more still unsettled. People assume that there's some sort of closure after the announcements yesterday. And if you're a team that got an invite, you're feeling really good, obviously. But there's still a lot of steps to take. For instance, as was pointed out by many teams, Major League Baseball still has not shared the professional development license for minor league teams. Which is sure to be, thick enough to stun an ox and providing lots of clauses that may not have been totally anticipated. And so the lawyers are finalizing it now, and then the next set of lawyers will be looking at it. Professional licenses can be kind of complicated, and I think there's enough mistrust between Major League Baseball and minor league baseball that there's going to be some contentiousness. That's not going to come out until the beginning of the year. And also not coming out were final league lineups, which aren't going to be quite as straightforward as you would think. They're not totally settled. You may see some league shufflings at every level. For instance, I was on a call yesterday with the Twins and Gold Clan group. They refused to commit to what league the team would be in at AAA, which I found fascinating. And then there's schedule stuff. There's talk of interleague play, which would make, AAA league assignments not moot, but if you're the Saints and can play both Toledo and Iowa and Omaha in the same year, hey, regional play's fine. So there's still a lot of work to be done on the relationship, and then teams are going to have to decide if they want to be in. I don't think you're going to see anyone decline an invitation. You're going to see a lot of squawking. You're going to see a lot of complaining. But at the end of the day, the alternatives are not great.
I'll throw out something that, let's say this has no bearing in reality, but in AAA, there's the International League, there's the Pacific Coast League. And then there are all these teams that are located in the middle part of the country. St. Paul is now in. When we look at geographically, we want to make sure that travel is better. That was one of the main focuses, was how can we ease up travel for the players, for the teams? Would there be any possibility of a third AAA league and separating things regionally to ensure that travel was easier?
There was talk about that. I've not heard any recent talk about that, but quite honestly, if you're doing interleague play anyway, you really don't need 3 leagues. You can just have regional play and counts in your league standings, and that's about it. So the whole notion of leagues is going to be kind of outdated. Administratively, Major League Baseball won't have league commissioners. We've been told they'll have league supervisors, and then people will, the supervisors will supervise multiple leagues, quote unquote. I've heard names of existing commissioners being considered for these posts. So it's not exactly a secret necessarily, but you're not going to have a league commissioner, league president be like they were in the old days, where they're drumming up business, where they're reviewing contracts, where they're seeking new markets. You're just going to see an MLB supervisor making sure that things are running smoothly.
Yesterday was the day in which everything was reported, where news started to come out, with Major League Baseball teams announcing the affiliates that they had invited, and with this reaching so many different media outlets, right? It's local, it's national, it's a big baseball story, it's a big regional story, it's a big local story, city to city. And something that we were talking about is how this was being reported from, in general, folks who had not been following the news in the months leading up to this.
Yeah, it's been reported really poorly. Sports writers tend to make terrible business writers, for starters. And ultimately, this MiLB reorganization is a business story, not a baseball story. And so you've seen a lot of bad stuff. And as I indicated, I spent more time this morning on the phone clearing up bad reporting from other people in many ways. Like there's one national pundit who I won't name, who was quoted as saying 119 out of the 120 teams have already signed their affiliate deals. And it's like, there's nothing to sign yet because the PDL has not even been presented to teams. So there's just a lot of bad data floating on out there. And, we work really hard to be accurate and talk to a lot of people. I mean, yeah, it's really not good for teams to have such bad information floating around out there, and it's really a disservice to the process.
That said, as teams are now looking over the terms of the deal, as you look at those teams that received the invites and those teams that did not receive the invites, what jumps out to you?
The teams that did not receive invites, I've already been on a few Zoom calls this morning with them, and I'm not going to say they are totally surprised or should be totally surprised, but they have no idea what to do next. MLB makes these vague promises about taking care of them, but if you are, say, if you're King County or Clinton or Burlington, and MLB says, we'll take care of you. Well, that just means we're going to recommend you go to an independent league.
Frontier League, American Association.
Frontier League, because they probably won't recommend Summer Collegiate because they don't have agreements with the Northwoods or Prospects leagues. So I find it hard to believe that MLB would say don't go, go to a non-partner league. So we're looking at Frontier League then. And similarly, West Virginia and Lexington, they're in the same boat. I mean, they could look at some MLB draft league stuff, although the geography isn't great. So we're talking maybe Frontier or Atlantic League in those cases. But there's no clear game plan, and I feel my heart goes out to these people because, it's sort of like being dumped with no notice, right before your 8 o'clock date. It's a terrible feeling, and there should have been a better way to handle all this than the way Major League Baseball handled it.
Let me talk briefly, personally, my reaction to everything leading up to this from my angle. So working with the Lansing Lugnuts, but I'll go back. My first job in baseball was in the Can-Am League with the Brockton Rocks. And I remember at the conclusion of that season, I was told, that's it. Thank you for interning with us and good luck. And then there's that uncertainty of the job searching season and the winter meetings and everything that comes out. The off season in baseball, for a lot of people, has been uncertain for years and years. This is a different kind of uncertainty. And so as we headed into this, especially with the minor league baseball season canceled, especially with no schedule coming out, especially as everyone's wondering about the negotiations and trying to hear whatever they can hear. And as you're reporting, things are constantly changing. There are so many people who are twisting in the wind. I thought Phil Rye, however long ago, put things really well on a public post tweeting out, Phil of the Bowie Bay Sox. The Bowie Bay Sox were my local minor league team growing up. Frederick Keys were a local team for me growing up. And it came down to how close to the end, Kevin, that Frederick or Bowie was going to have a spot in the Orioles system and the other team wouldn't.
It was going back and forth, and I can't really say a whole lot more, but that story is not totally written.
I mean, my goodness. So,
yeah,
right, that we have franchises who've been part of systems for so long, and people who've worked in the minor leagues for so long, and then the opposite, people who've just started to work in minor leagues and who have the spirit and the ambition and the energy for baseball. And with teams having their futures thrown into doubt, with teams losing their affiliations, I entered yesterday with my Lansing Lugnuts receiving the invite from the A's, and that gave me relief. And I'm talking to a coworker who felt so happy about this. And I know there's the entire opposite side of the coin being experienced across the country, that it just felt like such a tumultuous emotional day.
Yeah, I fielded a lot of those same social media discussions, not to the extent you probably did, because you're much more tied into the baseball lifer sort of community than I necessarily am. But a lot of anguish, a lot of frustration, um, and the relief that was felt when those invites came in the via email. And I know people realize that this is just the start of the process, that there's going to be a bunch of teams that will probably be issued 5-year provisional PDLs based on the need for ballpark improvements. So being one of the 120 isn't necessarily your 10-year time to rest on your laurels sort of golden ticket.
That's one side. That's the minor league side that I can speak to. You're also following along the major league side where it's not like every major league club is coming out of this super thrilled.
No, no. In fact, I received a whole bunch of complaints from major league types, especially farm directors and GMs, AGMs, who didn't feel their needs were being adequately addressed here. That there was a disconnect between what the labor committee of MLB owners was negotiating versus what the owners really wanted. That's why they ended up at 120 players in an organization, not the 150 that the labor committee was pushing for a while. The facility standards ended up being a little bit of a compromise, from what I'm told. So, the frustrating thing, if you're a minor league person, is that the last 3 weeks, basically all the discussions regarding affiliations and placements were not being conducted with the minor league teams. They were just between major league teams, the commissioner's office, which must have been awfully frustrating because you had no idea of your fate. Absolutely none.
So are we now at a point where in a month or two, minor league teams are looking over these terms and thinking to themselves, take it or leave it, and then they give their answer in the next month or two, in January, February, we figure things out for the next step?
That's a classic bargaining strategy. I mean, that's just hardball negotiation. String the client along, and then drop the agreement and say you've got X number of days to decide if you agree to it or not. I mean, this is you this is Alec Baldwin sort of tactics, not some sort of you know uh, uh, negotiations done between partners. And what you really learn now is minor league baseball is not a partner of Major League Baseball.
And all the while, we're all watching vaccination schedules, states and health regulations and how things are, and what in the world spring training and next season would even look like, because we need, and I can speak for myself, I don't want to speak for too many others, we need a minor league baseball season.
We do
There
need
need to be fans, there need to be sponsorships, there needs to be, just to help everybody out, because this year has been rough.
Yeah, the sooner 2020 ends, the better, as far as I'm concerned. And we'll need a season. We'll need a spring training, and it may just be with 25% capacity and lots of, hand sanitizer and plexiglass, and that'll be fine. The psyche will need it. You might see it delayed. You never know. I think you won't see the minor league season until May at the earliest, which I'm not entirely sure most owners wouldn't oppose. I know it's a financial burden to not have that revenue in April, but on the flip side, it's going to be still cold out. And, what we're finding out in the sports world is just because you offer 25% capacity doesn't mean 25% is filled. There's still the demand side that's got to be addressed, and safety has to be addressed. So everything's still so up in the air. I wanted to ask you, since you're actually living this as opposed to me, who's sort of looking in from the outside. This must be your first affiliate change with Lansing.
Yes. So
Uh,
I joined the Lugnuts in 2009, and they'd been affiliated with the Toronto Blue Jays and switching from the Cubs from 2004 through 2005 was their very first season with the Blue Jays. So that's a great 15 years with the Toronto Blue Jays. But then it became the Vancouver Canadians or the Lansing Lugnuts for the Blue Jays High A affiliate. They couldn't keep both of us. So Toronto, Vancouver, Oakland Athletics, Lansing Lugnuts.
Yeah, so from your viewpoint, it's going to really shake things up. I mean, you are an integral part of the Blue Jays ecosystem, doing the podcasts with other broadcasters and being really tied into that. Do you see that happening again with Oakland, or, is that camaraderie going to be around?
I don't want to force my way in too soon, but to go back to how things developed with the Blue Jays, my first couple of years, I did not truly grasp where we were within the system. And then starting in 2012, really starting at the winter meetings in December 2011 at the Blue Jays affiliate dinner, to be able to speak with everybody else there and understand that this was a family in support of the Blue Jays players, coaches, support staff, that all of us were helping everybody move down the line. And so we worked together. The players represented our community while they were a Lansing Lugnut, as did the coach. And it was really good for us to understand where our players were going and who was coming up to us. So beginning with 2012, working with the voice of the Dunedin Blue Jays, Craig Durham, we started talking about what was going on in Lansing and Dunedin and talking up our promotions, talking up our stadium for people to come visit who lived out of state for either Michigan or Florida. If you're Toronto snowbird or whatever it might be, here's what it's like. And then expanding that to, at the time, AAA Las Vegas, expanding that into New Hampshire, expanding that to Vancouver, expanding that as things went on to Bluefield in the Appy League. That became such a great thing to talk about the full family, to say, here's how things are at every single level. Here's the feel, here's the atmosphere, here are the players, and here's also the big promotional days. So we could talk about our guys coming up together, and we could also celebrate the Foul Ball Day in Buffalo. We're talking about the Buffalo Philharmonic Orchestra. At the same time that we're talking about Bluefield, the Lemonade City, that when the temperature rises over a certain level, that everybody in the city of Bluefield gets free lemonade. Marvelous. I don't know how things are going to go early on with the Athens. I don't want to press too hard, but I believe in that. I believe in all of the affiliates in communication, working together, talking to one another, and being on the same page. Just the same way that everybody in the same league is. I'm so close to all the Midwest leaguers, and it helps that I travel with the team, although we'll see how things go moving forward. It's good to have that emissary talking to different front offices, me coming back to the Lugnuts and saying, I love this promotion. I love this in-between inning game. Talk to them about this. This is brilliant. It's good for the leagues to talk. It's good for teams to talk. That's what's so good about the different meetings, the winter meetings, and we're not having them this year, but it's good for all those great idea makers to get together. So I'm sorry that I talk so much about this, but yes, I did believe in that Blue Jays organizational family and what I could do to bring everybody closer. And we'll see how it goes as I get to know all the A's people.
Yeah, it's an interesting system. On the one hand, you have Stockton is a nice little ballpark. You'll have to try to get out there. Vegas is Vegas. It's the cathedral of the PCL. Never been to Midland. Never been there. So you're going to have an interesting time getting to know these people. And I hope these camaraderies are maintained after the reorganization, because minor league baseball family, it's a very real thing.
Let me spin this back around on you. Looking at the major league teams and the affiliates that each of them invited, which teams do you think this team really likes how it ended up? And which team specifically do you say, this team, this is not the quartet that they wanted to go with for whatever reason?
If I'm in Miami and I'm Ken or Derek, I am just so happy with how things turned out. Not only did they keep Jacksonville, they got Jacksonville raised to AAA. They added Pensacola, which is one of the top teams in all of minor league baseball. And then they're adding Beloit, which has a new ballpark and a really solid leadership structure being put in place. So Miami went from, one of the worst farm systems facility wise to, maybe one of the best, if not the best.
Quint Studer, Derek Jeter.
Yeah. And, I know the Twins were sad about losing Pensacola. I know that Oakland, no offense to Lansing, they wanted to stay in Beloit. They'd put up with that crappy little Pullman field for years, and we're looking forward to the new ballpark. But not too eager. I mean, the moving trucks were already heading to Lansing before you guys received the invitation. That I know for sure. So they were ready to pounce on this. So if I'm Miami, I'm real happy. Minnesota, if I'm the Twins, I'm very happy. I don't think they disliked Rochester at all. I think the Red Wings treated the players pretty well. Rochester's not the easiest place to get in and out of. If you missed that 6 a.m. flight that led you to Minneapolis, you were kind of, having to make other plans during the course of the day. So adding St. Paul, which is, and I don't know if you know Minneapolis, St. Paul's geography very well, but there's light transit. And so there is the line connecting downtown Minneapolis and downtown St. Paul, the Green Line. Every major sporting venue in the Twin Cities is on the Green Line. So to call up a player from the Saints, you just hop on the Green Line and ride to the other end, pay your $250 or whatever the fare is. And that's incredibly convenient. Adding Wichita, which looks to be just a gorgeous ballpark, and will be a plus for the team, although losing Pensacola is not good. And they maintain Fort Myers, which is their actual player development headquarters. And they like Cedar Rapids. They're loyal people.
Kevin, I want to stop you and go back to St. Paul. You know the area. Is this the city, the team that is going to have the greatest reaction to this news?
I was part of a press conference yesterday with the Twins and the Saints, and it was everyone important was on that call. Dave St. Peter and Derek Falvey from the Twins, Marv Goldklang and Mike Beck and Derek Scherer from and Sean Aronson, can't forget Sean, from the Saints. And I think Mike was pretty optimistic about fans reacting very well to the change. On the one level, the nicest thing about independent baseball historically has been that renegade spirit.
You can do whatever you want. You're the iconoclasts.
While kind of flipping off affiliated baseball too.
Yes.
You guys wouldn't have the balls to do this. We do.
I mean, the St. Paul Saints are one of the heartbeats of independent baseball. They sold that, Kevin.
They are. And one thing that was, Jim Polad was on the call too. And Jim Polad pointedly said, we don't want to change what the Saints do or how they do it. That would be stupid because the Twins bought a chunk of the Saints. So they're partners on multiple levels. But I thought it was really, really telling that Polad was quite adamant about not wanting to change what the Saints do. And Mike and Marv both said, well, we wouldn't change anyway. So you could order us all you want, basically.
You know what I hope? Just like we saw this past season, Major League Baseball becoming more like minor league baseball, 7-inning doubleheaders, runner at second base, extra innings, etc. I would love, for now that the Saints part of the minor leagues, I would love for minor league teams to become even more like the Saints, to really lean in.
It wouldn't be hard to do. I mean, the Saints are known for, like Sister Rosalind and her healing massages in the concourse. The Twins could come up with little stuff like that. I don't think they will. I think they're an operation that prides itself on a great fan experience and in kind of different ways than offbeat promotions like vasectomy night and whatnot. So, but I think they'll complement each other. And it always remains to be seen how well these relationships work in practice, because every major league team historically that has owned a AAA franchise always says we're going to be working closely, and it never really happens that way. I don't see a lot of the Braves influenced with the Gwinnett Stripers, for instance. I've never really seen a lot of Yankees influence with Scranton Wilkes-Barre, past sending, Yankee greats for promotions. So we'll see how real it is. Although I think because of the personalities involved, this may end up being, a very good relationship.
And good for Sean Aronson. Good for our good friend. Uh, I would think, though, that it's difficult as a major league team. We talked about how the whole priorities for Major League Baseball and what is it focused on. I would think that for a major league team and its priorities over the course of the year, that it's really easy to get that tunnel vision upon you.
Right.
And that for that AAA team that's right next door going, hey.
Well, ultimately, Major League Baseball is still a volume business. Minor League Baseball, even if you're a successful AAA business, really isn't a volume business. You can do the high touch, approach to minor league baseball. It's a lot harder to do when you're dealing with a crowd of 32,000 at Target Field versus a crowd of 6,700, 7,600 at CHS Field.
Let me ask you, Kevin, between our last chat and this one, how much transpired during these negotiations? How many roller coaster twists were there?
Well, I don't remember exactly where we left it. I mean, there were roller coaster twists in terms of the travel stuff. And to their credit, the MLB negotiators did back down on prohibitions against the likes of Thirsty Thursday and the early school start. There's some flexibility on the bus stuff as well, apparently. I think honestly, there weren't a lot of changes on the minor league side. I think all the big changes, all the maneuvering for markets ended up being on the major league side, with the MLB teams fighting with the commissioner's office. The Giants fighting to stay in Richmond, even though MLB was totally dead set against it. They were slotting the Giants for Wichita and the Twins for, and I don't know whether you discussed it or not, there was this weird proposal from the Nationals to elevate Richmond to AAA, demote Rochester to AA, and then move the Twins to Manchester and then install the Blue Jays in Buffalo.
I mean, it stands to reason for the Washington Nationals. Richmond is right there. That's part of where you want to market.
And that's sure to be a provisional license market. They can't sustain playing at that ballpark indefinitely. And it's nice that the Giants are willing to give the Flying Squirrels time to work out a deal. But that's for sure going to be one of those 5-year provisional licenses. There's no doubt about that.
Well, these are big times. Looking at it from the business perspective, as you do, where are we going?
We are going to, I think you're going to see things being more unsettled than you think in the next 5 years. I think there's going to be more franchise shifts or licensee shifts that will be on the horizon. What's 120 now won't be the 120 in 5 years. I think that's safe to say. On the plus side, facility changes always give teams an excuse to upgrade their ballparks or to build a new one. And this may be the impetus that Richmond has to back a ballpark plan. And this morning we posted about Boise. Memorial Stadium obviously didn't meet the facility specs, nor could it, given the way it's laid out. And the managing partner, Jeff Eisenman, was pretty blunt in a press statement saying, we don't want to go back to the Northwest League. We're shooting for AAA now. And walking into MLB offices with the new AAA ballpark is going to get a lot of attention. So I'm not entirely sure that there won't be markets like Boise or San Antonio as well that isn't going to push forward some sort of new ballpark construction at that level.
It's going to be interesting to follow. Kevin, as we wrap up, any final thoughts?
No final thoughts. Right now, I do have one. And that's, and this amplifies what you and I were talking about. We really do feel the anguish people are feeling out there. The 2 weeks leading up to yesterday was just a terrible time for a lot of people. It's going to continue because for 11 of the 12 teams that were cut, and I don't count Trenton because they've already agreed to the MLB draft league. So the 11 teams that didn't make it in yesterday, they're going to make some really hard decisions. And, it's going to be interesting to see how many actually stay in baseball, how many, and there's one, and I don't want to name it, who basically have already closed up shop and will not continue in any form. You may see more. You may see, meanwhile, I know the Northwoods League has already been buzzing around Iowa. So we'll see who stands to win or lose in this next round. And I'm a little optimistic in that I don't think summer collegiate ball is necessarily the worst alternative for some of these teams, especially a league like the Northwoods League, which is established, which is proven to be a good investment. Long term, I think we're going to see the ownership faces in baseball change. Some owners were worried that their teams won't be worth as much or won't be perceived as good investments. I think they will be. But it'll be the difference between a really passionate owner in it because he loves baseball versus an investor who is debating between owning a minor league team and a McDonald's. And that's where I'll leave that.
Isn't that the whole thing, though, that unless it's during a particular time, the baseball teams don't generally make that much money, but they certainly can lose that much money. So it kind of helps to love it.
It does. You should always want to love it, but there are owners who don't necessarily love it out there who still make money, and God bless them. You just may see more of them because MLB will presenting such a different way of doing business that some of these passionate owners may just say, you know what, I think maybe I'm better off owning a soccer team. Who knows?
Well, thinking about all of those without baseball, sorry about that. That apparently means that I've got a package because it's Hanukkah and Christmas gift season where things are getting delivered.
Gotcha. You better get that package.
Yeah. Kevin, thank you very much for your time and your insights. Stay tuned. Keep your eye on ballparkdigest.com. Subscribe to the newsletter for all the news, everything coming in. I'm Jesse Goldberg-Strassler. He's Kevin Reichard, and thank you.
Thanks.